Anti-abortion activists are celebrating the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, and that includes our next guest. Kristan Hawkins is president of Students for Life of America. The group is fighting to abolish abortion in the United States. Hi, Kristan. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
There have been people working towards this decision for around 50 years. You have been working on this personally for 15 years. Is your fight done?
Absolutely not. In fact, this is a heady responsibility to say that we're the first post-Roe generation. Today we were knocking on doors in suburban Maryland, ensuring that every woman that we meet knows she doesn't stand alone in a post-Roe America. So we have a lot of work still to do.
In what way?
We have to work, obviously, to protect women and children from dangerous chemical abortion pills that, President Biden has promised to try to make them over the counter.
The FDA has said they are safe and effective, as you heard the Attorney
Yes, and
General
over
say.
24 women have died that we know of, and we don't have a national abortion reporting law on that.
Direct evidence connecting them.
Yes, absolutely. But we also have to do a better job of promoting nonviolent resources. The fact that there's 3,400 pregnancy centers and maternity homes that have been operating in communities for decades that vastly outnumber abortion facilities in our neighborhoods. But sadly, nearly 73% of Americans that we meet do not even know that these resources exist. And so that's really been my challenge to those of us who are pro-life right now in this moment of getting our voices out there, promoting websites like standingwithyou.org and other places where women can go and families can go and get support and services.
Right, because as you well know, economists are now predicting that child poverty, the rate of that is going to go up. Many of these states that are now banning abortion do not have paid family leave. They do not have the extended Medicaid for after giving, women who give birth. So if you could explain a little bit more about how you're going to fight for these disadvantaged women who wanted to get an abortion, they couldn't because of the state they live in, and their children who are growing up in poverty.
Well, we've been fighting for these women and their families for 50 years. It's in fact the abortion industry and what we hear on campuses all the time that tells women that abortion is a simple solution to all their problems. When in fact we believe in helping those who suffer, not eliminating somebody who may potentially suffer. And I think you help suffering, you help alleviate the suffering. You don't say, well, we're going to solve that by just prescribing abortion, because abortion doesn't end poverty. Abortion doesn't take her out of that abusive relationship that she finds herself in. That's harder work. That's walking alongside someone and seeking social justice with that person. And that's what we've been doing through the pregnancy center movement for nearly 50 years.
But what if, well, first of all, I hear what you're saying, but the reality is, I think it's nearly half a million kids end up in foster care, and I don't know how many of those were kids that the mother wanted to abort and came from a disadvantaged home. But the reality is, you say that you're working on this, but so many kids still end up abused, neglect in the broken foster care system. And the reality is, the governments in these states do not have the resources on the books, such as paid family leave, such as the extended Medicaid, to help with these situations.
We can definitely talk about those policies, but the question is the solution to children in foster care to kill them? No one would argue in our society that because a child's in foster care, therefore their life is unworthy of living. And that's the point that we're making in the pro-life movement every single day when we argue for protection at conception. That just because someone may suffer in their life, it doesn't mean we should snuff them out of existence, that we should violently end their life when they've done nothing wrong. And I think that's the important part to start the conversation.
And I want to get to that because you bring up two important points, your view that life begins at conception, but also your view that even bans like in Missouri, which bans abortion even in the case of rape or incest, that you support that. So under those laws, a 12-year-old could be raped and still be forced to carry that baby to term. Is that what you want? Is that the kind of thing you support?
I absolutely don't want 12-year-olds to be raped.
Right, but
and
that
I don't
happens.
want 12-year-olds
Unfortunately,
to
that's
be
the
pregnant.
reality of the world we live in.
Absolutely. We definitely see these tragedies, and I think we need to do a better job in enforcing penalties on these people who commit heinous crimes.
But do you think the 12-year-old should carry that?
But I don't believe in discrimination against a human being based on the circumstances of their conception, because we don't issue birth certificates in our nation and give gold stars or silver stars as to how you were conceived. We say, no, you are a human being with rights and you should be protected.
So what I hear you saying
that's what we believe as a movement. And I think I actually think you should speak with folks like my friend Ryan Baumberger, who was actually conceived in rape, whose mother made a courageous decision to place him with an adoptive family, and talk with the tens of thousands of Americans who are living today who have families who were conceived in sexual assault. That every single time we talk about abortion in America, we bring these human beings up as if their lives don't matter and they don't have value. And I simply reject that.
Yeah, and that's not what we're saying. The question was about, should a 12-year-old carry a baby to term if that 12-year-old was raped? Clearly you think, yes, that is the case. And we have talked to many people who were born even though their mother was raped, or even though their mother considered having an abortion and chose not to. We've talked to people all across the spectrum. But you are arguing that your Catholic faith dictates that the life begins at the moment of conception. There is a synagogue in Florida that has filed suit claiming that in Jewish law, abortion is required if necessary to protect the health, mental, or physical well-being of the woman. Why should your religious beliefs trump theirs?
It's not my faith that tells me that life begins at conception. It's science.
Well, there's plenty of scientists, as you know.
96% of biologists agree that the moment of conception, a unique human life comes into existence. There's no other moment when that DNA code. Where are you getting
the 96% of biologists? Where does that come from
Those are from, that's a study from Chicago, University of Chicago.
Okay,
but
my producer will look that up because I've read many opinions preparing for this segment of doctor. I just want to be clear with our viewers
but that's science. You can debate whether or not that human life has value. My faith tells me that human life has value, and that faith tells me that human life should be protected. But science tells us at the moment of conception, when egg and sperm unite, a unique genetic code comes into existence that's never existed before and will never exist again. That is, in fact, the moment when a human being comes into existence. That is indisputable.
There's not a consensus among scientists. There is absolutely not.
Well, they should be scientists if there's not a consensus.
Well, and let me walk you through what many scientists have said. I've read all sides of it today.
Sure.
I've read from various scientists. First of all, there is a general view that a baby, a fetus, reaches viability between, I believe, it is 24 to 28 weeks in the womb. Right. There is a view that when the egg it meets the sperm and it becomes an embryo, that it is just a cluster of cells, that it is not
just a cluster of cells. What makes me different?
I know,
and
I've heard you say that, but I'll tell you right now. So what about it? And this is, I am not taking a position, but I like to challenge and test
this is fun.
views. Yeah, exactly. I think that
I like having this discussion. This is important.
So if a woman goes in, she can't get pregnant on her own. So in a lab, they have to take, they have to do it scientifically. In a lab, they have to put the egg and the sperm together to create an embryo. In the process of trying to get this woman pregnant, a doctor destroys the embryos because that's just what happens. Is that doctor then a murderer?
Yes, a doctor is ending human life. We don't define it as
trying to get a woman pregnant,
code, but that is ending human life.
So IVF clinics should be banned.
It depends on the procedure that is used in IVF.
But sometimes that's just what happens.
But there's also the question of intentionality as well. I had a question posed to me recently on campus where someone said, well, if a woman's having a miscarriage, do you consider her being a murderer? Absolutely not. That's something that is unintended and is sad. And just because if a woman may be at risk for miscarriage, we don't consider her a murderer because she has an unfortunate situation.
That wasn't my question. And I see what you're saying, but I'm talking about a doctor who is trying to help a woman get pregnant, and through the process, embryos have to be destroyed. That doctor is a murderer, even though
no embryos should have to ever be destroyed in IVF.
So, okay, well, it does happen. That's just the bottom line. And also there are so many embryos frozen as well that these IVF clinics oversee. So what about that?
And I think that's what we've been talking about, intentionality. I would say that when we talk about pro-life laws, this isn't even discussed. So when we're talking about what's next in a post-Roe America, the discussion of IVF isn't even on the table. We're talking about ending human life intentionally, dismembering children who have limbs, whose arms and legs have to be removed from a woman's body and put back together. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about seeking laws to protect women against the predatory abortion facility.
What about the women who, and you know this will happen because it has historically, women who are in states where abortion is now outlawed? How worried are you that they will turn to an increasingly dangerous means to end their pregnancies.
Yeah, we don't want any women to die. That's why we're pro-life. I'm actually very concerned why the Biden administration has rushed through these dangerous chemical abortion pills, which lead to injury,
The FDA
infertility,
says they
and
are
death.
safe and effective. The FDA says they are safe and effective.
Yes, but they've also killed women. 24 women have died. 24 women have died.
That I'm aware of, there is direct causal link, evidence, and my producer is looking this up, between the pill that the FDA has said is safe and effective for abortions and killing a woman.
You can talk to the family members. There's a gentleman who speaks openly in the state of California about his daughter who died taking these chemical abortion pills. We know, even though we don't have a national abortion reporting law, 24 women have died. And I would actually ask you, why is it on Twitter that abortion activists right now are posting homemade, do-it-yourself abortions, dangerous chemicals that they're telling women to take? That's not the pro-life movement doing that. We're saying, how can we help you? How can we support you? How can we alleviate the crisis that you find yourself in without ingesting dangerous chemicals that are going to kill your child and possibly kill you? That's not on the pro-life movement. That is on abortion activists right now.
Well, I think abortion activists would say they don't want women taking dangerous chemicals either. I have
But
yet
they're
to hear
putting
that
the
from,
cocktails on Twitter.
Look, there's a lot of crazy stuff on Twitter. I don't think that that is what a majority of
Well,
abortion
Vox and
activists would say.
other pro-abortion news outlets are actually publishing those articles right now, and I think that's a very dangerous situation.
Certainly
for
not
women.
something that we endorse, and that is something that you have brought up, not something that I brought up to you. But I appreciate this fulsome discussion, Kristan Hawkins. I think it's so important for us to see all sides of this, and
I'd love
we
to talk about
appreciate
it further.
Yeah, we'll have you back on for sure. Thank you very much.